So, Aaron, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time today to being a part of our community and practice channel that we have on YouTube. On behalf of SETC, we thank you so much for your leadership today.
It was nice to get the invite to be here and talk about something that is near and dear to both of our organizations' hearts, people power. So
That's
happy
good.
to be with you.
Awesome. So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Well, I hadn't started thinking about it as amazing work until more recently, but my name is Aaron Binder. Uh, I am one of the directors at the Better Way Alliance, which is Canada's ethical employer network. It's where good business grows. We have a lot of fantastic members in our network that advocate for better jobs, for better economy. How can we build an economy from the ground up? So that's our big task that we're working on for Economy 2.0, we're starting to call it. How can we build something that works for everybody instead of just the folks at the top? I'm also a small business owner. I own two businesses in Toronto, and I've had quite a few years of political campaign work under my belt as well in a past life. So I've done a lot. Um, Happy to be where I am today, advocating for people, and that's I think that's why we're here.
Exactly. Totally agree. That's amazing. Congrats on your businesses and all that. That's awesome. So, can you articulate your personal mission and vision for us, and like what inspires you about the work you do?
Well, my personal mission and vision are pretty much the same. Uh, I grew up in one of those environments that fostered, I guess you would say, obsessive growth and like not in the financial sense, but the reading a book in math class kind of sense. Um, I've always been a huge reader, and I've always wanted to gain as much knowledge as possible and then share that knowledge. So my mission is really just to pass on what I'm learning and how we can grow a better world based on what I'm learning and pass that on, teach other people tools and tricks that I've learned. I was fairly fortunate to grow up in an entrepreneurial family, so I've gained a lot of these skills from being a very small, young little boy. And over the years, I launched my first business at 16. And since then, I've been able to help other folks um, ideate and then execute on their own enterprises. And, my vision for this is really like there's a big enough pie out there for everybody. How do we share it in the most equitable way possible? Um, we don't have to fight with each other. We have to be creative with each other. We have to find out what is the way forward together instead of trying to take somebody else's pie. So that's kind of my vision and I feel like that's probably something we share, which is, how do we make sure everybody has a stake? How do we make sure that everybody has what they need and they're able to grow from there? So those are kind of my basic guiding principles. And from there, that's come through in the businesses that I steward in my job at the Better Way Alliance. You know, we we really are building Economy 2.0. We've got a great network of business owners that all believe in their people as being their biggest assets. So how do we help them succeed while we are succeeding as well? Because I'll tell you, like those workers in our businesses are we're much more closely related to them than any billionaire. So how do we succeed together and make sure that we're going and rowing in the same direction and finding success together, whether that's within our enterprises or helping them start their own or finding that next job. That's a much better way of doing business than trying to be protective and scarce about business.
Exactly. It really is that people power that really drives economy. It drives businesses. It drives, to keep those the business owners afloat, right? So that's so key. Very good. So on the flip side, like what challenges or barriers have you faced in your work and how were you able to overcome them?
Oh, I mean, every day is a challenge, but we get to wake up and face it. So I always welcome those challenges. I would say some of our biggest challenges right now are that, and you've probably seen this as well, Matt, we're going through this big social and economic upheaval. And it wasn't the pandemic that started it, but it accelerated and amplified it. So we're at this space now where the dust is starting to settle a little bit, but there's still so much uncertainty in how to move forward economically, culturally. Um, so I think our biggest challenge is convincing people that what we're doing is actually best for that. Oh, my dog just walked in. Uh, but the biggest challenge is making sure that we're able to show people that our ideas will build a future economy that works for everybody. And that's being inclusive. That's showcasing how there is enough money to go around. There is enough food to go around. We don't need to have people starving. We just need to make sure it's distributed fairly. And part of that is reevaluating why are we still utilizing trickle-down economics as our founding principle in in North America and in many other places of the globe when there are other economic models that work and enhance people before profits. So I think that's our biggest problem and our biggest challenge right now is getting enough people on the bus to move it forward, but it's happening. And we're seeing it every day as more and more business owners, more and more nonprofit folks, more and more, even big businesses are coming on board with the fact that if they continue to ignore the environment, if they continue to ignore people's needs, they won't have customers. And then we'll be in a situation where we're regressive. So if we want to be progressive, we have to make sure that everyone has what they need, they have the tools to succeed, and that we can all succeed together.
That's right. It's just a basic standard of living, your food, your clothes, your shelter. I mean, that's all basic stuff. But now we're getting into an unbalancement of the scales, where, like you said, the greed is coming into play. I remember I was listening just actually last night. Elon Musk, he was, being interviewed, and they're like, "Oh, there's not enough resources." It's like, "No, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's plenty of resources. Yeah." And he's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, well, there's not enough water to drink." It's like, "No, no, no. The earth is made up of 70% water. We have plenty of water. Oh, but it's not drinkable. Oh, but we have the capabilities to, desal, like, take the salt away from the water and make it into drinking water." I've actually seen
Mhm.
that myself, by an inventor in Africa. He did it with a machine. He was able to take water from the ocean, take the salt away, and it was totally drinkable. So these things are existing. It is real life. It is happening, but greed is in the way. And, champions like yourself and the work that we do are really going to expose that. Like you said, the dust is settling, but sometimes when the dust settles, you really get to see reality of what's
Yeah,
before you. You know what I mean? The dust clouds your eyes, but when the dust settles, you actually get to see the real deal. So yeah,
yeah.
totally understand what you're saying.
Well, I think of one of our members. They have a project called the Safe Water Venture Institute.
Mhm.
I just totally messed up that name, but they they saw an opportunity to build wells, long-lasting wells, 25, 30-year wells, um, in numerous African nations where a lot of these nonprofits would go in, give people a bunch of money, but not actually build sustainability into these projects. So
Okay.
it was a short-term cash injection, which would drive any economy into kind of disarray. But if you teach people business skills, if you teach them how to sell a product, if we have to live in a capitalist society right now, they can sell these at an affordable rate to neighbors in their communities and make sure that the foundational thing we all need, clean drinking water, is
Mhm.
accessible
That's
That's the
great.
way to build a future economy
Hmm.
versus trying to just throw cash at everything.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Man, so what are some of the key priorities that you're working on right now?
How do we make sure that everyone's got a level playing field is probably our key priority. And that's folks that have been here, whose families have been here for thousands of years, to folks that have been here for less than a year, and everyone in between. So we really take an approach at the Better Way Alliance to an inclusive economy that makes sense for everybody. So I would say that our priorities right now are showcasing how that works within our members' businesses. So we do a lot of case studies based on our member businesses. We also have some nonprofits within our network. So we're actually able to show these businesses and use them as case studies when somebody comes up to us and says, well, you can't run a business that way. Like your labor's too expensive. Well, I've got a business I can showcase within our network in that industry that is doing things the right way. That is showcasing how they can pay more, how they can offer benefits to their employees, how they can bring employees into the ownership structure. We have all of these case studies, we have all of these examples. And I think our key priority right now is showcasing how they're doing it so that more businesses, more nonprofits can get on board with doing things this way and making sure that the people that are working for them have the tools, have the economy that they need to succeed, and then grow their own enterprises if they choose to do that in the same way. So it's one thing just to identify a problem, but we have to come up with the solutions to these problems. So that's really what we're invested in at the Better Way Alliance is showcasing the solutions to a lot of the problems that people are facing right now, like skyrocketing commercial rent, like cost of living, cost of doing business. We have solutions for this. We just have to invest in them. So that's really what we're focused on is showcasing the solutions to a lot of these problems that are facing a lot of folks in North America and the rest of the globe.
Right, right. That's why it's so important the work you do. I mean, to because a lot of people in certain positions of power, you know, a lot of times they may know, but they don't know how to implement. So here you come, to really streamline it and see how easy it actually is, you know, and get to the solution so everybody can be on somewhat level playing field. So such an important work that you do. We really appreciate your leadership for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, and I think you probably see that in your work as well. When you
definitely.
support your community, they'll support you back. You build a social fabric, and everyone has more of a safety net to work from.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. So let me ask you, how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
I am actually really glad that you are that we're having this conversation after the recent American election. Um, I think I think there was a moment, and I'm just pulling up a LinkedIn post right now. Um, I think there was a moment, probably the 48 hours after the American election, where everyone in Canada said, "Oh, what are we going to do? How does this impact us? How does this affect us?" I put some thought into it, and you know, I put out this LinkedIn post, and I'm just going to read a couple sentences. I predict Canada is going to become a global leader in social enterprise, and that this is Canada's moment to lead on the globe again. So I think we're very well positioned in Canada to lead in this area. And I think that is the case for a couple of reasons. It's because folks like Setsi and everyone within your network are already doing this work. You've already laid the groundwork down for social enterprise and social impact. I really think every business is actually a social enterprise. It just kind of comes down to like, are you going to be antisocial and extracting wealth, or are you pro-social and generating wealth for the communities that you serve? So I think that, whatever happens down in the States, we really have to identify in Canada how can we be pro-social and generating community wealth and generating um, the social fabric and the social networks that we need to succeed. And that's social impact right there. It doesn't have to be anything more complex than connecting a business owner with the right employee. But if you've got those networks, you can connect the right people. And that's one of the issues we're facing in Canada right now is a mismatch in job skills. It's a mismatch in people within organizations. So I think, when it comes to social impact, Canadians are inherently, I think, social impact people. And right now, because we're making all these connections, because we're seeing this trending momentum toward social impact in Canada, I really think we're going to take the stage on the globe and lead in that area.
Yeah, actually, I agree with that because, one thing that I've noticed, especially being with Setsi, is the collaboration, the power in collaboration. That is really the key to
Hmm.
systems change, right? We're accessing the tools, we're getting the knowledge, we're having the conversation. Like I said, we have a social solidarity working group that really shows that. And I'll make sure Victor sends the invite to you so you see for yourself the power of this work. So I totally agree. I put that faith in that, and as well as the next generation, because I see the yeah not having it, generation Z, there's a reason for that. I think the
Hmm.
last letter of the alphabet, they're not taking it, and so they want answers. And so we are planting the seed, but they also have to make sure that the tree is well watered, and the fruit bears
Mm.
from it in a prosperous way for everyone. So yes, I agree with what you're saying for sure. What is the ultimate goal for you and your company, and what does success look like to you as well?
Well, I just want to touch on what you said about Gen Z. I've
Yeah,
got a
sure.
few, and it actually does tie into your most recent question. Um, I think you're right. You actually identified something there is they want answers. And I'm a millennial. We wanted answers, but we didn't push it hard enough. And now we're kind of like to Gen Z, we're actually lumped in with some of the older generations. And I don't want to turn this into a generational warfare kind of commentary. Everyone's contributed, everyone's extracted. Um, that's just the nature of how society has gone for a long, long time. But I think what Gen Z is doing is basically saying, well, I'm not going to work for you if that's what you're offering. I'm not going to work for you if these are your beliefs. And, some people call this like, oh, that's woke philosophy. I'm like, no, these these folks just want to be able to live. And my generation, I'm looking at buying a house next year at 40. And my parents bought their first house when they were 21. This is kind of the marker of generational wealth. Do you or do you not own a house? I live in Toronto. I can't afford to buy a house, and I make decent money. So it's, you know, I look at the Gen Z folks and they're like, what the fuck did you do? What happened here? And why did you why did you let it get so bad that now I have to be responsible for this? So I think they're actually carrying a great weight along with the rest of us, but they want accountability with that weight in a way that former generations haven't asked for accountability. Um, so our ultimate goal is like, how do we create that accountability? But then how do we move forward from, we don't want this to turn into a trial. We want this to turn into the next steps. So how do we create the next steps? Our ultimate goal is like, how do we create enough critical mass behind our ideas for economy 2.0? Um, those inclusive ideas that bring along business owners, that bring along our employees, that foster a next generation of successful entrepreneurs, of successful employees, of successful citizens, and just people. I think that's our end goal. Success for us looks like nothing concrete, to be honest with you. Like we have legislative goals that we want to pass. We have cultural goals that we want to pass, but once those are done, there's always a next step. So we want to continue seeing this growth toward more inclusive economies, toward more people succeeding, and making sure that folks have the foundational building blocks that they need to succeed. There are big gaps there still. When someone wants to start a business, it's hard. Nobody is really going to tell you how to do it. There are lots of groups out there that will show you the way, but there's no, I shouldn't say there isn't any connection, but I think the connections can be a lot stronger between these groups like us, like you. You know, this is our first connection, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue growing that along with how we've been growing connections with many other business groups that are aligned with the similar kind of economic policies and ideas that we all want to showcase as the future of how we can build a stronger economy for everyone that makes sure that ensures everyone is able to succeed. So that's our end goals. Like, how do we bring everyone on the bus along for the ride?
Exactly. Totally agree with that. That's so funny. Like, yeah, I'm noticing that too. They want answers, and they want to know that, okay, own up to this and let us roll up our sleeves too, and don't think that, we're just playing games all day. I mean, we can play games all day and make 60,000 a month. We can do that. You know what I mean? It's being done. Right? But they also want change, because they do know that, they want to be able to live in a society where, it's suitable for everyone. So totally agree with that, man, Aaron. It's been a pleasure. I mean, this is something that is going to really affect a lot of people in their hearts and their minds, to really think about, what is before us, and do we want change, or do we not? We see things that are happening in our neighbors' backyard there, so let's learn from it. I hear some major tariffs are coming in day one when he
Hmm.
takes office for Canada. So what does that mean? Are we going to, come together as local artists, as local creators, to invest in ourselves? Not rely so much on, foreign things as well. So a lot of things are on the table that need to be addressed. But we really appreciate it. My last question for you is: do you have any closing thoughts or calls to actions at this time?
Uh, you mentioned the states in one of your last questions, and I want to go back to there because I truly think Canada is a global country, and we welcome people from around the world. We send people from here to everywhere on the planet. We're really a connector. We're a connecting country. And my grandparents were immigrants. They were refugees, as a lot of folks are now. And I just want to make the call to action. The closing thought is essentially like, let's build on this. Let's make sure that everyone's got the tools they need to succeed, whether their families have been here for uh, thousands of years, or whether it's their first year here, and everywhere in between. There is room for everybody. We have to do it right. And that includes making sure everyone has the foundation, the building blocks that they need to find their success in Canada, develop those relationships here, make sure that they've still got those connections back home. And we can all build together that way. The globe is only going to become more interconnected. So, what we're doing to build better businesses, to make sure that business tenants have the rights they need to expand their businesses with an eye for their people first, that's part of what we're doing. But groups like yours and community land trusts and immigrant business groups, everyone has a part to play in this. And I think that's the exciting thing that we're starting to really tap into in Canada across the country from coast to coast to coast, is that we're all finding each other now. And we're realizing just what is possible when we work together. So that's my call to action. Find those people. Let's work together and let's build that better economy that works for everyone.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself. That is the key. And Aaron, we really appreciate again your leadership. And we'll definitely be collabing. As we said, that is the key to systems change, and we are doing it, one step at a time. And so we'll definitely reach out to you again. Like I was telling you, our solidarity working group meeting that we have, with a bunch of different varieties, from nonprofits to different organizations. I want you to be surprised when you come. All right,
Gladly. I
so
love a good surprise.
Yes, awesome. So thanks again. And we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, once again, Erin, thanks again, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a wonderful rest of the day.